Hello, Simon Dixon here, CEO and co-founder of BnkToTheFuture.com. Hopefully, we're on the right link right now. We had a couple of links because we're doing some tests, and we're meant to be on the Ask Me Anything session 2. So if everyone can hear me okay, can you post something in the comment section so that we can check that we're in the right place and everything's working? Great. Looks like some comments are coming through. The next thing we just want to test is whether my co-host is here. So Jao from the BnkToTheFuture.com team has all the questions, and he's going to be picking up all the questions that you've submitted and getting through as many as we can in the next 60 minutes. So Jao, if you could just say a few words and we'll test whether the audience can hear you okay.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully everyone can hear us, and apologies for all of these technical issues. If you can hear me, please give a yes, I can hear you.
Great. Okay, well, I think we're all set. And this is our second session. I think it's going to take about 3 or 4 sessions till we get really smooth and proficient at doing this. And we're also building out our studio that hopefully in the next couple of months will be ready to go live. So bear with us. The quality is going to go up and up and up each time. And great to see so many people here. So I'm just going to jump straight in. And because we started late, I think it's about 1:15 now. We're going to do 60 minutes where we answer as many questions as we can from our community. So we'll carry on until 1:15. And thank you for bearing with us. So firstly, just a quick update on what we've been happening in Bank to the Future and at the Bank to the Future team. We've been working very much behind the scenes on going through and completing much of our compliance audits at the moment. Every year we do an audit to check the compliance procedures. And while that might be very boring for our community members, it's the future proofing of our business as a compliance-driven business. It's always served us well. For those of you that have been watching the news, you might have seen me. I did a live stream where I joined about 10 different panel experts on Tony Vays's video channel, where we were debating the SEC and the implications of the SEC announcements, where one of the officials at the SEC's corporate finance division announced that Ethereum and Bitcoin are not securities, but most tokens are securities, but something can be sold as a security and later convert into a utility token. Now, while that's a lot of jargon and really complex for people to understand that aren't versed in securities laws, I'm getting a bit of an echo there. I think that's gone now. That's good. That aren't so versed in securities laws, then that might be a bit confusing. But in a nutshell, it's way that we've always done things at Bank to the Future. We've come from an advantage because we originally built this business in a time when nobody cared much about our industry. Now, obviously in 2017, we had explosive growth in our industry, but we were working since very early 2010, spending years trying to secure the licenses and pioneer this industry where, we were involved in the very first discussions from a regulator trying to allow for the investment in private equity online. And that later went on to be the Jobs Act, and then obviously ICOs came along and started ignoring securities law, and now ICOs are coming along, and we're looking at more like securities tokens and utility tokens that are sold as securities. But as we converted from equity to more of the tokenized model that we're looking to be involved with, and we've been involved with since its very inception and birth, we have our compliance-driven process has stood the test of time and allowed us to continue doing business. And each year we get a compliance audit to ensure that our processes are up to date with international securities laws. So we've been working very vigilantly and hard on that. I know that's very boring for you as investors, but that's one of the things we've been doing. In the background, our technical updates is we've made progress with our company pages. Now, while company pages might not seem like the most important thing for Bank to the Future to be focusing on, let me tell you why we chose that company pages is an important part of the next release. It's because directly after that, we're working on our secondary market, and the secondary market is allowing existing investors to offer their shares to other qualifying members on the platform for the shares that we believe qualify to actually be traded on an internal market at BnkToTheFuture.com. This is a very commonly requested feature from our investors, which will allow the people that have made investments in some of the companies that are now experiencing ultra high valuations, and people that missed certain deals because they weren't involved from very early on when we started this mission and companies were selling equity, to be able to kind of catch up with each other and get some feedback on mechanism for market pricing. In order to do that, there's some very interesting challenges from the perspective of the investor. It seems very simple. It's just allow investors to sell shares to each other. Well, from the perspective of the actual implementation, you've got the technical side where we're essentially taking all of the legal processes that have been done manually with humans sending paper from filing cabinet to filing cabinet and digitizing that and updating that. And the hardest part is actually getting the fair market, because there's asymmetry of information, which means investors that have already invested have access to different information from investors that haven't. And so the company pages is our attempt at trying to bridge some of the asymmetric information gap, where new investors have certain details that old investors had, and to try and bridge that gap slightly so that we can make the market a bit more fair is an extremely challenging thing to do. But also it means that companies can sell shares to individuals, individuals can share to companies, companies to company, individual to individual, and we can have every iteration thereon in between. So that is really a precursor to the secondary market. That is on the main app in BnkToTheFuture.com. At the same time, we've got separate development teams working on what might be the future of Bank to the Future. And that is that we're involved in a very fast changing market where, thanks to the ICO boom, people are used to controlling their own assets, going from exchange to exchange, which doesn't necessarily translate into the actual compliance-driven model and the securities model that the SEC is saying is a part of our future, of our industry, and the other regulators might be gearing towards. And so while we have a Bank to the Future, the main app is a compliance-driven platform for being able to do primary offerings of different securities, such as utility tokens sold via an investment contract, or simple agreement for future tokens, or simple agreement for future equity, or equity and convertible notes, and various other products. We are also focusing on what that will look like in the future. And so that was really the first phase of our token sale, and the reason we created the BFT token in the first place was to really future-proof and build a community around the new ecosystem that we look to implement, so that we're future-proofing for what these securities are going to look like in the future. And that is really around securities tokens. And securities tokens can be a few different things. It can be just traditional equity sold as a security, but done via a token, so that has all the benefits of a transparent ledger and being able to transfer those in a more fluent way and get down the settlement time of humans transferring paper shares to other paper shares with lots of lawyers in the middle. But also it can be utility tokens, which are sold actually as investments, so that we don't need to pretend, in order to comply with securities laws, that these aren't investments, so that we can get the match between people actually selling investments and people wanting to buy investments. We want to bridge that gap by building this ecosystem and allowing people not to pretend that they're not investments. And that's really the goal of that. So the way that we're actually doing that is we're firstly building out the wallet that can hold the BF tokens. And the BF tokens is the different user cases that we got is firstly a membership token, which is live right now, whereby anyone that has 10,000 BFT on their BnkToTheFuture.com account gets priority access to deals. And later in this call, I'd like to announce one of the next priority access deals that we're really excited about. We've been working on for years, actually. And we'll tell you about a new model that we've developed in order to facilitate that. The second utility of the BF token is a rewards token. So when we build our company pages, we'd like to reward people for contributing to due diligence and investor relations, and reward people with that token in order to create a better, more decentralized way of actually contributing to the process of determining what's actually, the asymmetric information we talked about between investors, old investors and new investors. And the third user case is when we launch our securities token, we'd like to allow people to pay their trading fees and get discounted trading fees as a reward for paying them with the BF token. And so those are the different models. So in order to facilitate that, the first thing we need is the BF wallet, which is a wallet that allows you to, in phase one, hold your BFT tokens and take them off the platform so that you can still gain the membership without actually having to hold them on the platform, and you can still hold the private key. The second phase of the wallet is to allow for the holding of securities tokens in compliance with securities laws, so that now this is an improvement. So originally on the BnkToTheFuture.com platform, you'd have to hold your share certificate in a physical paper format on the BnkToTheFuture platform. When we move to this more securitized token model, it means that you can take that off the platform, and there'll be a way by smart contract of enforcing regulations and who they can be transferred to within that, but you can still hold them within the BF wallet. In order to make that happen, we need to build API keys that allow to port your identity across these different platforms, so that there's a very seamless user experience. And then the next phase is to actually launch the securities token exchange. Now, there's some really interesting things that are happening at the moment, and that is that while everybody's focused on the US and the US regulations, it's actually one of the worst places to issue as security tokens, because of the restrictions that US law and securities law that they've stated won't change, imposes upon those securities tokens. But actually, international securities law is more suited for this, and therefore we're going to have this weird situation where within the US, they're disadvantaged in terms of how they can utilize their securities tokens versus the rest of the world. And so we're working on those challenges right now, and we can't really release too much information, but we're just working on those international arbitrage issues that arise as a result of different securities laws and the US being disadvantaged compared to non-US. And so that's something that we're currently working on at the moment, with the applications and regulations and licenses that we're working on. Not more I can say about that. But the idea is that you can go from the primary market platform, BnkToTheFuture.com, where you can do the initial issuance of securities and various other things. You've got the BF token, which puts together all this ecosystem in order as a rewards token, a payment token, and a membership token. And then you've got the wallet where you can hold your BFT and hold the securities tokens, which then is integrated into the securities exchange that we plan on launching in the future. And then the final part of the ecosystem in the whole roadmap is that we're looking to build a more decentralized way of determining what we list on BnkToTheFuture. So that will be a voting platform, and BFT will be the token that actually powers that. So there's a general overview of the ecosystem and the roadmap that we're looking to build around. And in the meantime, unlike many other token economies and systems, we do have our live product, which is the BnkToTheFuture.com platform, which has been around for many years and has funded many of the most successful and valuable companies in our industry. And so we're gradually working. Now, we do get lots and lots of applications, and I'm going to forecast some of the questions that are coming through, because after I've given this update, we're going to take over to some of your questions to get as many answered as we can. But we do get many applications, but many of them don't pass the due diligence process in order to bring them up with the standards of securities laws, as well as being the types of things that our investors would look for. So while we could list hundreds of these ICOs, we feel that our main benefit is trying to get deals which pass a certain standard and also are exciting to our investors. And we'd like many more feedback on the types of deals that you would like to see. But, just to let you know, we could put out hundreds of these things because there is no, that we get so many applications. But we're trying to find the ones that meet a certain standard, and also are exciting to our investors. And that means that we, only work on a few deals at a time. Our team is currently working on about 6 deals and a new model as well. And so the final thing I'd like to cover before we jump into your questions is a new model that we're finding as a result of doing these offerings at the moment. We're finding that the very best deals are really happy to take us on as an investor, but sometimes they really don't want to go through the whole process of, getting listed on our platform because they're actually fighting away investors. And what you'll find is that the best deals are fighting away investors. The good ones are trying to pitch investors like crazy. And so sometimes you have a really good deal that doesn't necessarily, they're fighting away investors, but they'd love to have BnkToTheFuture.com in our community. But they don't really need to go through the whole process of listing on the platform and going through everything they would need to go through. So a new model we've been experimenting with is where we leverage our relationships with the industry and access to some of the best deals, and we just simply subscribe to them ourselves as Bank to the Future. But part of making our investment is we actually decide that we're going to give part of the allocation to our investors on our platform that we've already subscribed to. So while we would rather hold it ourselves, as a reward for being a member of the Bank to the Future platform, a qualifying investor, and a BFT token holder, we're actually going to take some of what we subscribe to, and even though we'd rather hold it ourselves, we'll make it available just for our BFT token holders that are subscribing to priority access deals. And we're very happy to announce the first deal. Now, in terms of, I know the regulatory side is not so interesting, but the only way we can make this happen is whereby we take our own funds that we were going to be investing into that deal. We decide how much we're going to make available to our community, but we only release it after the token generation event. So once the event actually happens, because they don't want any kind of offering, because they're just doing it privately prior to actually the token going live on an exchange or the network going live. But once they've actually issued the tokens and before it actually hitting an exchange and becoming available for everyone, we can actually, just after the token generation event, take a portion of our allocation and make it available just to our BFT token holders. And we're delighted to announce that the first deal that we'll be doing that with, we wanted to announce it as our next priority access deal, but due to some delays, the token generation event won't happen at the end of until early September, according to, and that might change, these things do change, but the token generation event doesn't happen until early September. But we've got a very strong relationship with RSK. It used to be known as Rootstock. And we've been, Diego is on our board of advisors. He's one of the co-founders. We have been, actively involved with supporting RSK for many, many years now. And they did their token sale just to private investors, and we were one of the subscribers. We were one of the very first people that they allowed and wanted to subscribe. But we decided that once the token generation event happens at the end of August or early September, we're going to allow our BFT token holders that have the 10,000 and qualify to invest on our platform, that have the 10,000 BFT on the platform, to actually take some of our allocation as a reward for being a community member. Now, this is a very hard token sale to get in. You will notice, if you did some due diligence on it, you'll notice that many people are selling it for rip-off values on the secondary market, and they're breaching the terms and conditions of investing, and that tends to happen when you get the really good deals. And so we're happy to announce that we will be sharing some of our allocation once the token generation event happens with our BFT token holders. And we're going to look to do more and more of these because the market is constantly changing, constantly evolving. We get access to great deals, but sometimes they're not necessarily want to go through the whole process of listing on our platform because it's quite an intense process. So we can leverage our ability to actually get access to these deals, and our commitment to our BFT token holders is where we can, where it's possible, we'll actually share a portion of that allocation once it's compliant to actually do so. And so that's our new compromise, the new model that we've been experimenting with, and RSK is the first deal that we're going to be doing that with. And for those of you that don't know what RSK is, it's been around for many years. It is essentially a scaling solution for Bitcoin, which utilizes side chains and merge mining in order to allow people to be more innovative without actually interfering with the main Bitcoin protocol. So obviously this is it's both a scaling solution using side chains and merge mining. I know that's a lot of jargon for those of you not too familiar, but essentially what it does is it turns Bitcoin into what Ethereum became, allows people to use side chains and use the most secure blockchain. And so we're seeing a lot of innovation happening on Bitcoin right now with Lightning Network side chains, and Rootstock is allowing people to create smart contracts on the most secure blockchain, which is Bitcoin. So, you know, they've been working on that for many, many years, and it's now in mainnet. And they did a private sale, and we have an allocation. And once the token generation event is, we will make that available just to our BFT token holders. So the membership token now is not just 48 hours priority access, but it's actually deals that will be just to BFT token holders that are qualifying investors on our platform. So there's my 15, 20-minute overview. What I now want to do is jump into answering as many questions as we can from the people that pre-registered, and maybe some things that have come up in the live chat. So Jao, I'm going to hand over to you now to pick some questions, and we'll jump in and get as many as we can in the next 45 minutes.
Have improved. Thank you very much for your patience, people. We have got quite a lot of questions, and I think an interesting ones are related to the development or the progress of Bank to the Future and BFT tokens. The first I've got for that is, can you update the community on what has been achieved this year against the 2018 Bank to the Future roadmap?
Yes, so we haven't exactly fulfilled the roadmap exactly as we anticipated it would go. We've had several things that we worked on that pushed back. One was expanding our technical team, a lot of customer onboarding, a lot of anti-money laundering training and everything we have to do as a result of that. The compliance audit is something we have to do. But all of the now, and we're also working on expanding our customer service. So we did, you know, we were not delivering the type of customer service that we want to have delivered. And so we've been looking at making all those back-end changes, and with a larger, with a better customer service experience, a better technical and larger technical team. We've been working on those roadmaps right now. So we're currently, as we said, we're doing company pages will be released soon. We made some back-end changes which allowed, for example, you may not as an investor experience the benefit of this, but the companies do. So one of the big challenges with companies is that they didn't, in a crashing market like Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, while they want to allow investors to purchase their securities or investments with Bitcoin or Ethereum, in a crashing market, that can be really, really painful. So we implemented a new approach which auto converts via a stable coin, and allows to take out the volatility so that the company can choose to accept volatility or receive the exact amount. Now, while as an investor that may not actually make a big difference to you, what it does is it means that more companies are willing to use us, and it increases the number of deals, especially as securities tokens brings more mainstream companies such as Telegram, the types of deals to the industry. You know, they don't necessarily want to take on some of the Ethereum and Bitcoin risk, especially in these crashing markets. wallet is in motion, API is in motion. Exchange is going through regulatory side at the moment. And those are the main things that we're committing to at the moment. As always, as with everything we've ever done, the problem with a token sale is it makes you commit to a roadmap. And when you give your best guess, when compliance is involved, everything takes longer than you can imagine it to actually take. But we're all in motion. And I think our token is going to reward the patience of our community that are looking to see the full fruit of the entire ecosystem built.
Thank you very much for that. The next question related to Bank to the Future progress is, when is BnkToTheFuture.com valuation likely to be, and what valuation can shareholders expect?
So I assume this is a question from one of our shareholders. So for those of you that are a shareholder in BnkToTheFuture.com as a result of investing in us in equity through our platform, then what you need to do is just head over to the private investor forum and you'll find an assets tab. On that assets tab, it actually gives the valuation of a lot of the assets. And then if you go to the portfolio section of your account, it gives the latest share price. Now, one of the interesting things about when we launch our secondary market is the market can have more of an input. The way that you price shares at the moment is you have to wait for a pricing event. I mean, a pricing event means you either sell more equity, you float on a stock market, or you do a private sale of some of your stock, or there's some kind of event that sets a valuation. Other than that, private equity doesn't value, it's not like a live dynamic token where it's based upon buyers and sellers and therefore you get a live market price. So one of the challenges with Bank to the Future and equity and our existing things is that many of the companies did not need any more funding. Some of them went into ultra profits and therefore had no intention of selling equity in the future. And therefore, the price is still the price from 2 to 3 years ago. And we can't make up a number and change the price based upon the progress we think they've made. We have to wait for a pricing event. So many people see in their portfolio a price that is significantly less than if it was, actually marked to market in the current price. But we can't just make up numbers and change that. We have to wait for an actual pricing event. Now, what our secondary market does is it allows for more frequent pricing events, so that the estimation of share price can be more live and dynamic, much like you see with tokens. So we're really excited about that. But in terms of shareholders, we're going to have to take that one just to shareholders. That is shareholder information. So if you ask on the pitch forum just for shareholders, then we can give you some more updates on. But at the moment, it's still the valuation from our last funding round, which was many years ago. And we've made significant progress and added many more assets to the portfolio since then. So we're waiting for our next pricing event, and I imagine that we would be one of the first companies to test our secondary markets, which can then allow for the people that have joined our community to participate, and the people that were very early to cash in on some of the returns if they want to do that. So that's my question. That's my answer to that question. What have we got next, Joe?
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions about, they're very keen to understand what's happening with the next platform upgrade.
The next platform upgrade, just repeat it slightly for those that are joining right now, is company pages is the next thing we're doing. And then once we have company pages, and we're doing a lot more on our internal compliance processes, and then once we have all those in place, because we had to make so many internal compliance changes in order to allow for the compliance-driven ability to sell your shares to other investors, then we have what we need to release the secondary market. At the same time, we have different teams that are working on the wallet, the API, in order to make the platforms interoperable. And then once the licensing progresses, the securities token exchange, followed by the voting platform. And really, that's like about 2 years, because in between all that, we'll have many investor-led features that will come through. So that's more than enough for us to be working on.
I think, sorry, just one question following the upgrade is related to, after the secondary exchange, is launched, what's the plans for 2019?
Well, that will take us into 2019. So we've got two things which are slightly different. They may be a bit hard to understand the difference. First, you have the ability, which we're calling a secondary market, for people that own shares and on BnkToTheFuture.com in order to be able to offer those to other qualifying members. That is traditional equity and various other products that are on Bank to the Future. The tokenized securities market is a different platform that will be integrated via API and user experiences. And, I imagine that's going to be a 2019. That will take us right through to 2019. So, yeah.
Okay. We have a question from Martin, who asks, will we see more investors, passive funds like Bitcoin mining, Ether mining?
We decided as a company, to give some background on that, we were one of the very first, we launched a couple of products we were one of the very first miners in Zcash and Ethereum. So right when Ethereum started mining, we launched an Ethereum, what we called an Ethereum mining-backed security, which is essentially we took the model of paying out the returns from mining, but we structured it as a security in order to remain compliant with what we believe the securities laws are. And the Ethereum mining-backed securities was without a doubt one of the most profitable investment on BnkToTheFuture.com. The Zcash one didn't work out quite as well, but we've decided that if the investors want more of those products, then please do let us know. But we decided our observation of the mining market is that in most cases, if people had simply invested in the token itself, they would have made more than if they invested in the mining. And that was our observation. And based upon that, we made the decision that we think if investors want to actually get exposure to these tokens, then actually either they're going to be a highly specialized miner, which isn't our main game, or they're actually just investing in the token and they'll probably be more profitable than doing the mining itself. So we made a decision that we don't want to support any more mining investments on our platform. But if you would like to see otherwise, then we welcome your feedback. And do let us know, and we're open to reviewing the types of things you'd like to see. The other thing was passive funds. So we decided also that we don't want to be in the game anymore of managing people's money. That's not a game we want to be in. We like providing the investments, and the investors can choose what they want. We do, however, have some of the top funds in the industry that would like to do a round through our platform. So we'd love your feedback. What would you like to see? Would you like to get exposure to some of the top funds that invest in ICOs and equity and managed funds, that operate in our industry? Would you like to get exposure to that via Bank to the Future? Because we do have some of them that are looking to launch on our platform. So maybe you'd like to do that more than per deal. So please give us your feedback on whether you'd like to see those types of opportunities listed on Bank to the Future.
So we've got another question related to a feature. I guess it's a sort of a feature request suggestion by Ed. He writes, can you put an automated system in place to deduct the tax I need to pay on trades or capital gains into an account in my portfolio, which I can then pay the tax department?
We wouldn't be able to do that because we've got a global customer base, and that would depend on your tax situation. So we don't know your tax situation. We're not authorized to give tax advice, and we don't know what tax you are due to pay in your jurisdiction. What we can do is, if you would like to give us feedback on how we can present the information in a better way where you could give it to your tax advisor, then we've taken that feedback and we can put that in the queue as a suggestion. At the moment, we have the details of the wallet, the transaction history in the fund section, and we also have a CSV download feature where you can manipulate that data to how you want. But as much as we would love to be global tax advisors, that system seriously needs some work to be able to give. Even the the accounting platforms like Xero still can't achieve global tax advice and supporting that. You still need your tax advisor to do that. So we look forward to seeing what disruption happens in that market. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to become global tax advisors and figure out your tax liability for every jurisdiction in the world.
Okay, Ed asks, when the deals are announced on the platform, there are usually 10 to 20 investors who have already taken up the majority of the deal, leaving very little for investors who don't invest millions. These are clearly investors who have been given pre-priority access to the deal. I would like this process to be more transparent and make the priority access due to holding 10,000 BFTs to be the priority access it has been advertised as. It appears that there are different tiers of priority here. Usually this is not a problem since the deals thus far have not been that outstanding, but I can see this being a problem if the deals get better, which we are hoping for.
Okay, well, thank you for your feedback. If you have a deal that you think is better, please give us your feedback of the types of deals you would like us to see. We have a good reputation and leverage within the industry. So if you have an idea of what you think is a good deal, then please let us know, and we can reach out and potentially get better terms and give you access to something that you might not have been able to get access to. So thank you for the feedback on that. In terms of how it actually works before BFT token holders are notified, we have a policy at Bank to the Future, and one of our very essential due diligence requirements is that we look for deals that have already gone through the due diligence process of an institutional investor. So one of the things we do is we put them through several layers of due diligence. The first is, can they get past the due diligence process of institutional investors that analyze these deals day in, day out, and put them through more of a higher standard and rigorous process. So when a deal comes to us, either they've got an institutional investor already, or they're looking to go live on the platform, and we will introduce them to some of our institutional investors. Now, if you would like to be considered as an institutional investor that does really advanced due diligence and your full-time job is to do due diligence on these deals, then we would love to share those with you as well, and you can write into us and let us know. But what we do is, before we release it to the BFT token holders, is we look to have either they have found some institutional buy-in, or you are co-purchasing with someone that does this full time, and that is part of our due diligence process. So the reason that before the BFT token holders do that is because part of our process of determining what's get listed on our platform is to put it past institutional investors and see if they would actually invest their cold hard cash, and so then we can present it to our token holders on the same terms. So that's the reason why we do that. In terms of more transparency on that process, that's completely, really great feedback. We look forward to how we can present this information better. We try at the moment to explain who the investors are. So when you're co-purchasing with an institutional investor like Pantera Capital or Digital Currency Group, or Blockchain Capital, or some of the VCs that we've syndicated with in deals, then we try to make that as clear as possible. And on the investor page, there is a company section which lists who the investors might be. And as we release our company features, there's been some real improvements there. So thank you for all that feedback, Ed. Yeah, we look forward to seeing how we can make that better.
Okay, so we have one question from Anonymous. What is your opinion in investing in startups seeking to raise a new generation crypto exchange, human agents, as opposed to ATM in Africa?
Very specific question. I'm not sure I have a specific opinion. My answer is that when I'm investing and I decide what I'm going to invest on BnkToTheFuture.com, is the product is less important to me than the team and the commitment of the team. What I'm really looking for is validation from people that are very experienced in this industry, that put together lots of different really heavyweight investors, because we can, as heavyweight investors, we always take a strategic angle and we try and help as much as we can. The more heavyweight investors that can help as much as they can, the better. And we're looking for a team of dedicated people that aren't going to suddenly, they're not trying to look for the latest, greatest trend. We're looking for people that really are dedicated to a particular area. And that's the type of things I'm looking for. Once I've got that, I'm looking for a geographical and technological diversification in terms of building a portfolio and a portfolio approach. So if you're asking me, would I ever invest in an exchange or something else in a different region? Well, I'd look at investing in a range of decentralized and centralized applications, because in our industry, I think both have a market. I'd look for geographical or global diversification, and I'd be following a real portfolio approach where I'm looking to have a thesis about, I believe the future of finance looks very different from the past, and therefore I don't know which ones are going to succeed, but I'm looking for the best teams that can do that. Because at the end of the day, when you're investing in something like EOS, for example, or some of these other new tokens, nobody is technically qualified enough to know whether the technology actually works. The only thing you can do is diversify across the good teams of the building community, and admit that you are not actually qualified enough to actually know whether the technology works. Because at the end of the day, no one knew whether Ethereum was going to work. No one knew whether Bitcoin was going to work. All you could do is have a thesis and diversify. So that's kind of my answer to that. Remember, this is not financial advice. The way that BnkToTheFuture.com works is we allow you to select the deals that you like, and we present things that we might be investing in.
We have a question about BFT token and increasing the value of BFT token. Guillermo asks, I've seen many ICOs offered to token holders, but not announcements of direct investments using funds from the BFT ICO. What is the planned use of the funds risen with the ICO? And what is the plan to increase the value of the BFT token?
What you're trying to do there is you're trying to turn the utility token into a security token. If we turned it into a fund, then it would be a security and it could no longer trade on as a utility token. If you want tokens that are going to invest as securities in other companies and are going to use that in a non-utility way, purely an investment, then you need to be investing in security tokens. Because as the regulatory announcements state, if these tokens are securities, then they cannot be traded on non-securities exchanges. So that question, if anyone answers that question and puts together a structure to achieve that, then they have no idea about securities law and they might be delisted from exchanges very shortly. And they might need to list on a securities exchange, which is an evolving ecosystem that BnkToTheFuture is looking to evolve. So the answer to that question is BFT was designed as a utility token. It gives membership, it gives rewards, and it allows people to get discounted trading fees when our securities token launches, and is providing rewards for due diligence and membership. Whether in terms of commenting on how expensive it is for you to purchase those tokens or how cheap it is to purchase those tokens in order to use them on the platform, that depends on how many people want to purchase them and how many people want to no longer use their tokens. Our goal is to build as much utility so that people want to use those tokens and purchase those tokens. And in terms of speculating on investments and collective investment schemes and securities, then that's what we do at BnkToTheFuture.com, and that's what we aim to trade on the exchange when we launch that throughout 2019 and beyond.
Okay, so we've got a question. We've got a few questions from the live chat. So chosen one from Jared, who asks, will all the investments that have been made on BnkToTheFuture be available to trade on the market platform that is being developed?
No. So we're developing our policies for what qualifies a deal to be able to be traded on the platform. There are some companies that are no longer actively, they may have failed or they're not really making enough progress to actually drive as much demand. We don't intend on allowing people to sell their investments to people that don't have as much information on as them when the company isn't performing as well. That is called a bad investment. That's not going to be offloaded onto another investor that doesn't have as much information as you. However, the companies that are performing well and are actually, on a growth path will be the ones that we'll look to have on our secondary market, and we'll look to have well-defined policies of what qualifies that. But no, this isn't going to be a way for you to dump investments that have been doing really badly, and there are a few of those, obviously. This is a high-risk industry. It's going to be a place to actually trade the ones that are actually, really actively got a community and people are looking to purchase those. And so we will be, really considering the demand from investors to purchase those tokens, those securities and shares, as well as the demand for people to actually just sell those.
Thank you very much for that. We've got another question. Bank to the Future seem to be licensed under Cayman Island regulations. Are there plans to get an onshore license or have a banking license?
Well, onshore actually depends on where you actually are located. And the reason that we, all those years ago, moved from the UK and an FCA appointed representative registration to a Cayman Island registration is because we were working on a global structure in an industry that has very many uncertainties and very many nuances. So we took the most appropriate license in order to be able to, the most appropriate registration in order to be able to do that in a more global fashion. Now, on jurisdiction by jurisdiction, if you set up an office and you focus on marketing in a particular jurisdiction, then you can apply for local licenses in those jurisdictions. And that is something that we have actually done either through acquisition strategies or actual focused targeting of particular areas. But Bank to the Future is very much a global platform. We've built processes designed at complying with local securities laws, but in terms of actually being on the ground and marketing into a particular jurisdiction, that's something that our business doesn't actually do, and it's a bit of a mismatch between the traditional world versus the world that we live in today. And so onshore is dependent upon many factors. We have a diverse team around the world that are performing different functions in different jurisdictions. And we aim to comply with those local regulations in the jurisdiction of both the residency of the investor and the activities we are performing in that jurisdiction. I know that's a bit of a mouthful legal question, but really the way that BnkToTheFuture.com was designed is that we take care of all that heavy lifting, and then we try and just focus on the things that investors care about. In terms of applying for a banking license, absolutely not. We have no desire to be a bank. In fact, being a bank would be the most ridiculous thing I think anyone could do in the current environment, when we are about facilitating the disintermediation of banking, the decentralization of banking, and providing a completely new system that's built upon Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, where Bitcoin actually allows you to own your own money, spend your own money, and has a monetary policy based upon savings rather than debt. Banking system is based upon debt rather than savings, facilitating a monetary policy that encourages you to be debt and decrease the value of your assets. It also doesn't allow you to own your own money, and it doesn't allow you to spend your own money. So we have no interest in being that. I accept the value that we might facilitate investments in a company looking to bridge the traditional banking world with the new world, but we are way more interested in investing in companies that are actually going to be doing stuff like that and bringing those types of deals to our qualifying investors than securing a banking license and subjecting yourself to insane policies based upon some of the things that we're actually funding. And that is actually the reason why we don't have an A in our name, because in order to have an A in your name, bank, while we do have the domain, so if you search for us, it will redirect. But in order to have an A in your name, you do actually have to have a banking license. That is not something that's a part of what we believe the future of finance looks like. One of our portfolio companies, though, a couple of our portfolio companies, if you're receiving those investor updates, have been looking at acquiring and applying banking licenses, and the challenges involved in trying to shoehorn that traditional model into a non-custodial model that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin have created for us, is a very interesting thing, and very hard to do.
Okay, we've got a question from Michael, who's in the chat, and who's written, would you consider adding OTC exchange as you build up security exchange inside BnkToTheFuture? Again, more liquidity strengthens the business.
That's a very good suggestion, and I'm sure that as we get to that point in time, if people wanted to buy large blocks of trades, then we could look at the OTC side of it. Our first focus is initially trying to drive as much liquidity to make decent pricing in a decent market and kind of catch up the securities token market with the utility market and try and emulate some of the things that made that such an amazing market that captured the imagination of so many people around the world.
The second question that Michael asked is up. He'd like to know whether in the secondary market that BnkToTheFuture is creating, will outside investors be able to purchase current shareholders' equity, as this would bring more liquidity and more transparency to equity markets?
Yep, that is the exact goal. And the reason this is taking quite long is we're trying to develop processes to deal with that asymmetry of information, whereby existing investors have more information than new investors. And so they have to kind of agree and understand that challenge arises. And that's why we can't actually open all markets, because the company needs to have made a certain level of progress before we can actually allow new investors to purchase shares from old investors and try and bridge that asymmetry information. And that's why we're developing the company pages. So great question.
H3 asks from the live chat, can we invest with USD balance in our wallets yet? Last couple of pitches killed this feature.
That is actually, yes. So the answer is you can still invest USD balances. But when we released our new feature, which investors weren't really, it doesn't affect the investor, it affects the company, the pitch. What happened is we auto-convert all Bitcoin and Ethereum via a stable coin to allow to take out some of the volatility. And when we released the first version of that, because we released it for a specific pitch, then we didn't actually have the full integration where you could invest balances. So the answer to that question is this is not good enough. This is not a user experience that we should expect our investors to understand, because it should all be done behind the hood. But if a company or a pitch is accepting volatility risk, then you can invest your balance. Currently, if the company is not accepting volatility risk, then we don't have the ability to invest your balance yet in an automated fashion. But if you write to our support team or you post something on the pitch forum and you do have a balance that you would like to invest, then it's not ideal, but we did it for a few people. We will find a way to do that for you in a non-automated fashion, and we'll just make it happen. So the answer is yes, you can. We need to improve the user experience, and we need to improve and add some new features to make that happen in a better way. And it's a very valid point, and we look forward to making that better.
We've got what is your take on asset-backed cryptocurrencies, i.e. gold? And where do you see cryptocurrencies going in the next 15 to 20 years?
So with asset-backed cryptocurrencies, I think the benefits of being able to transfer value around the world is a very important thing. The challenge is when you say cryptocurrencies. So I see the benefit when you take a traditional security or a traditional asset and you still comply with regulations and you use a token in order to do that more efficiently, i.e. the securities token exchange, because there's huge benefits of being able to clear and people check their balances and automate some of the compliance through a blockchain. And get instant settlement and all the things that you would need to do, and also be able to take those offline and trade them between exchanges. I see huge benefits there. The problem is when you take a decentralized network and try and connect it to a physical asset. The reason is because decentralized and physical do not mix at all, because you always have to have a degree of centralization. Now, we do know problem, and some of our portfolio companies that have listed on our platform are looking at how they can solve those problems. But the problem is when you have a decentralized network communicating with a physical thing, you still need the oracle. The oracle still needs to prove, is the gold actually there? And this is the problem that we had with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was initially saying that they had so much gold, and they tried to implement a quarterly report on how much gold they actually had. And even if they put that on a blockchain, you still need the oracle, and you can't actually guarantee that. Now, whether technology will come along in the future, like RFID chips and various other things, but my point is I think when you deal with a decentralized world and the physical world, the censorship resistance tends to break down when you have an oracle or a central point of failure or humans that can lie and manipulate those things. So it's a very interesting world. I look forward to seeing the innovation, but I think the main benefits for blockchains after decentralization, which was the primary one, is actually in clearing and settlement of financial products. So I look forward to seeing where that goes. And those don't necessarily, they have to harness the benefits of a blockchain in order for the benefits, but they don't fully solve the decentralized problem, which Bitcoin came along and solved by being the first decentralized way of transferring value around the world, allowing you to own your own money, spend your own money, and a monetary policy based upon savings rather than debt. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. We look forward to seeing where it goes, and we're investing in and trying to bring deals both in the decentralized and centralized world that are facilitating that.
We've got a question about, crypto securities regulations represents an opportunity for Bank to the Future, and what do you think of the competition like Polymath?
Absolutely. So we are definitely observing the market, and we're actively building. So we're building a wallet for securitized tokens. We're building an exchange for securitized tokens. And we're building an API infrastructure. In terms of what's really important for this, well, here's what I think it is, and this relates to the Polymath question. It is really important that we don't recreate the London Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, and the NASDAQ, or the Tokyo Stock Exchange, or the Shanghai Stock Exchange, or the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. What they do is they take a company and they create a siloed monopoly where you just list on one exchange. And then if you're from, New York, if you're from America, you invest in NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. And then you have to go to a fund manager that has the speciality to invest in the New York Stock Exchange or you do ETFs or managed funds. Please, let's not recreate that. What do we need to do? We need to learn from the success of the utility token cryptocurrency market. The reason that the cryptocurrency market succeeded is because you were able to take your assets, put it on exchange, take it off an exchange, and transfer it to other exchanges. So if we at Bank to the Future start creating securities tokens for companies, and we try to replicate the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, where we say we'll create a token that only works on our exchange, we have done nothing to improve the efficiency and success of the market. If, however, there is standards for how these securities tokens are developed on top of whether it be Ethereum or RSK on Bitcoin or EOS or whatever it is, whatever the standards are going to be, they must be done in an interoperable way, whereby if you have a security on Bank to the Future, you can withdraw that and put it on another securities exchange that's following the compliance rules. And therefore, that's why we partner with someone like Polymath, and that's why they're inviting us to their roundtables and ensuring that what we're building is in work with those. And it's not just Polymath, it's also companies like Securitize or various other protocols or some of the other things that are coming along. But to us, it's really important that we allow people to take those securities tokens, put them on their BF wallet if they don't want to leave them on our centralized exchange, and they have the ability to go where the liquidity is greatest. And this is how we build a complete environment. So therefore, under that assumption and that model, the more exchanges there are, the more liquidity, the more we disrupt the traditional markets, and the more we break down those monopolies like the New York Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, that try to create siloed monopolies and use investment banks and regulations in order to get them in their exchange, stuck in their exchange. And we create and replicate some of the success that this global market showed us in the utility and cryptocurrency market, but with securities tokens. And that's what I think is game changing. That's what I think changes the world. And that means that now securities tokens can get access to global markets, and all they need to do is comply with the regulations that they're looking to do. We can put some of the regulations into exchanges, and these exchanges compete for liquidity. Consumers have choice, and we create a global buoyant market. That's what I'm really excited about. And that's why I don't see Polymath as a competitor. There is so many people in this ecosystem that we need to work with. I am an investor in Polymath. I'm on the board of advisors of Polymath, and they're actually, making sure that we're integrating things in line with these standards. And we're going to have to build the ecosystem together, because there is a huge, huge, huge pie here that all of us are going to need to work on, and we're all going to have to rely upon each other. And that's kind of why we did some of you will be asking why we did the T0 offering. Well, we did the T0 offering because we're looking to build this ecosystem. And there was some challenges in that offering, and there was a reason why we had to pull that, for those of you that were involved. Unfortunately, because and this really goes into how we do things in the future, because we got more favorable terms, we had more favorable terms than some of the other investors, and that just wasn't the right way of doing it, because we invested earlier. And so really we decided that the right thing to do was to pull that offering. And Bliss, the co-founder, has just walked past, that you can see in the camera. Okay, so I think we've got time for one more question, Jao. And then we're going to have to take it to save them up for the next AMA, or take it to the Telegram group. One thing I would like to do is, everyone, please, if you like this video, if you're enjoying that, it really helps us to grow our community if you press the like button underneath this video, if you share it so that people can actually find the recording. And also, this is hosted on the BnkToTheFuture.com YouTube video. We're looking to get over 5,000 subscribers. We've got about 4,700 last time I looked. But when you press the subscribe button, you'll notice a little bell. And when you press that bell, it means that every time we release a new video, do a new AMA session, or have any new content, you will receive a notification from YouTube. So make sure you press that bell, subscribe, like, and share this channel, so that we can also grow our community.
Okay, so the final question actually is from two people, and it's related to investments in unicorn businesses. If I may, Bank to the Future frequently mentions having invested in unicorns. Could you confirm whether these unicorn holdings are part of the portfolio owned by Bank to the Future stockholders, or whether these are outside of it? There has been a mention of a holding company and another separate company which may not be as valuable. I'd like more clarity of which entity owns what. The assets has been broken as long as I remember. It is difficult to estimate the valuation of the company or two companies. Which one is more?
I think this is a very old question, but again, this is shareholders only. If you want to know shareholder information, then go to the forum for shareholders on BnkToTheFuture.com. But the first part of the question was for non-shareholders, and that is that we have several different models at Bank to the Future. When someone invests in equity, we get a beneficial interest to any dividends or exits that happen within that company. So we have a beneficial interest the more people invest through the platform. So shareholders in Bank to the Future would benefit from that. And when we launched our shares on the secondary market, so with the new shareholders, when we refer to unicorns, it could either be a number of different models. Either we've invested our proprietary fund And we do have an investment division at Bank to the Future where we invest our own funds, or we have a beneficial interest because that's the way our deals are structured when they list on BnkToTheFuture.com. Or it was simply listed on our platform and gave access to our qualifying investors, and we put together, a special structure that allowed them to invest in that, and we act as one investor for the pooled many investors. This relates to the equity investments. In terms of the assets tab, thank you for your feedback. We fixed it a while ago, so I think it's an old question, and I think you might have received the answer since then. So check the assets tab as a shareholder. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, it's because once a deal closes on Bank to the Future, it becomes a private just for the people that invested in that product, and they have a private forum, and in some cases an asset tab that updates them on some of the assets that company owns. And that's what we have at Bank to the Future for our shareholders, which is different to token holders and various other parts of our ecosystem. So thank you for your questions. I think we are now done with the hour. Our goal is that over the next couple of months, we're going to do more and more of these, but they're going to get better and better. We're going to overcome our technical challenges, build better processes. And as I said, we are actually building out studios. So we're really excited about, in the coming months, increasing the quality of these offerings, so that when you share them, like them, and subscribe to them, you notice improvements in what we're actually doing, other than just the content alone. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to the community. Remember, we are in a crash. For those of you that have not been through a crash before, we have seen this both in 2013 and 2014. If you look at my Twitter profile, I put out a chart there of what happens after the crash. During the crash, lots of technology gets built, innovation on a scale you've never seen before, and people that were never meant to be involved in the market exit the market. And then we, historical obviously cannot be a future forecaster, but we tend to move to a new bull market, which takes us to new highs, new heights, based upon all the innovation that happened in the bear market. So we're here for the long haul. This is a reinvention of the financial system through this technology. Started with Bitcoin, and now we're looking at the disruption in traditional stock markets thanks to this technology. So have some patience. We look forward to seeing where that goes. Subscribe to this channel, like this channel, and we look forward to seeing you on the next session. Thank you, Jao, for hosting and picking out great questions. And we're going to end the broadcast now. Thank you.